Hi, thanks for listening. I am Joe Krashenko. You're listening to Gun Talk with Joe. And guess what? I got two guests tonight. I have JC Krashenko with Aegis Tactical and my former spouse. And we also have Cynthia Clark.
And you heard that. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to say, and you heard that right, former spouse.
Yes, former. But we got Cynthia Clark here, and she is one of the best attorneys around, especially when it comes to your gun rights. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Joe. Hi, JC.
Am I supposed to call you Cynthia or Cindy?
Yeah, you can call me Cindy.
Okay.
Cynthia's my formal name, like my business name, but I go by Cindy.
Excellent.
Just don't call her late for dinner.
Don't call me late for dinner. That's why these people can't see me. They don't know how big I am. But anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about a few different things. One of them is Cindy wrote the best article I've ever seen on some of these new gun laws that we have down here in Florida. It was titled, Cindy, I'll let you even read the title.
I called it Bad Law, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act.
Sums it up right in the beginning. Bad law. Then we're going to start talking about some gun trusts. Do you still need them if you're going to have your NFA items, like your suppressors, your fully automatics, your SBRs? Then we're going to start talking about possibly the mental health checks that I've been hearing rumors from some of the people on the other side. And then we'll start talking about the kids in school. So you ready for this?
We're ready.
Ready as we'll ever be.
Let's just jump into your article that you wrote. Bad law.
Okay. Yeah, so I think everybody knows about the shooting that happened in Parkland, and, terrible tragedy. Former student, I believe.
Yes.
He was a former student, yeah.
Yes.
Walked into the school and ended up killing 17 people, 15 students, I believe, two adults. And of course, what immediately happened is what always happens. Knee-jerk reactions, emotions, and people using the children at the school for political purposes. At least that's my opinion.
I have to agree with your opinion on that one.
And it's happened before. It just kind of came out more this time, I believe.
And folks, we are talking about this article that she wrote, and you can find it on her website.
Yes, my website is www.cmclarklaw.com.
So you can just jump on their website right now and read along with us, but we're just going to briefly go over some of these parts.
All right.
Let's really touch base on the ones that affect the gun community out there.
Okay. There were three big areas that affected the gun community. And they were raising the minimum age to buy firearms to 21, banning bump fire stocks, and extending the 3-day waiting period to all guns, not just handguns.
Let's just start with the 21 years of age. I mean, that to me is a little ridiculous. They're violating their constitutional rights.
There is that potential. There's definitely a school of thought that says that that this law violates the rights of adults in America. Well, in Florida, not in America yet, but
Yet
is the big question, really.
Yeah, that could be coming. But what happened is the law used to be that you had to be 21 to buy a handgun through a FFL, a federal firearm licensed gun dealer.
Like Aegis Tactical.
Like Aegis Tactical, yes.
Aegisguns.com.
There's a plug.
But now it's been extended so that it's all guns. So if the way the law is written, it's actually kind of interesting. The very first sentence basically says that if you are under the age of 21, you cannot purchase a firearm, period. End of discussion.
That's pretty much where they're at with it.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions.
Yes, there are a few exceptions.
One of the exceptions being law enforcement, which kind of makes sense.
Right.
That they can purchase a gun. However, they can only purchase a long gun.
Right.
Cannot purchase a handgun, even though they're issued one. They can't purchase one.
They can't purchase one. Correction officers, same thing.
Same thing.
And active duty military.
Yes.
So there's no exceptions for a young veteran. If somebody comes back from Iraq or Afghanistan, injured, and doesn't matter. He or she cannot buy a .22 rifle.
So in essence, they have no right to protect themselves.
They have none.
But the weird thing with that, though, is most people they can still possess it. They just cannot purchase.
And the law, and this is part of the reason I called this article "Bad Law." It's not so much the policies. While I don't agree with the policies, that's one thing, but that doesn't make a law bad. I wrote it because as a lawyer, I looked at this law, and it was just so badly done. I mean, it just is wide open for litigation. That's really. They just kicked the can to the courts is what they did.
Which, again, is because it was a knee-jerk reaction to do something so quickly.
Yes.
Instead of taking the time to really give forethought to everything.
Right. Now, what normally happens, and it's not a secret, but what normally happens is a lot of these bills are already pre-written years in advance. Different areas, whether it's pro-gun, anti-gun, pro one thing, anti another, they already have bills that they want passed. So what happens when something like this happens, it's kind of, what did Rahm Emanuel say? Never let a good crisis go to waste. But that's what happens is they see this as the opportunity to jump in there and get their bill or part of their bill passed. And so this thing looked like it was just cobbled together from 100 different bills.
Well, they did it in, what, a week? Yeah. Not even?
Not even. I mean, it was ridiculous. So, but like I said, it was just a poorly written law. So the first sentence says, if you're under 21, you can't buy a gun. But as Joe said, you can possess. You can still possess the ones you already have.
So your parents can purchase one for you as a gift.
And,
Uncle Louie can buy one for you.
Well, and you can receive them as gifts, right? So it's very strange. I mean, so I don't see that that's really going to solve any problems.
No. And the 3-day wait is another thing that's kind of funny. Everybody has to wait 3 days previously before this law came into effect. You only had a 3-day wait on the handgun.
Right.
But if you had a concealed weapons license, you can take it home that day. Now it's a 3-day wait for anything unless you have a concealed weapons license.
Yep.
And this is one of the parts where Cynthia made me look like a fool. Doesn't take much, I don't think. But
that was easy.
I read her article and I called her up and said, hey, I think you made a mistake.
And I was very polite and said, Joe, please tell me what my mistake was so I can fix it.
She was. If I can only see her reaction over the phone. But there in the law, it states that concealed weapons license holders don't have to wait, or if you have a 16-hour hunter safety course and the certification card or a hunting license. However, what FDLE put out to us dealers was they had to have all three because it said the 16-hour safety course, hunter safety course, you had to have the certification for that course, and you had to have a hunting license. So we'd have to have all three things in our possession as a dealer for you to take that gun home today.
Right.
And that is incorrect.
Yep.
So I was wrong and Cynthia was right, and that's what I get.
Can we get that in writing?
Well, it's on there right now.
It is in writing.
Oh, it is in writing. I meant in blood.
No.
But that's what I get for reading the rules from FDLE.
Right. And the problem is you're not the only dealer reading those exact same rules. And so there's so many dealers out there that are so confused by this that a lot of them, they're just kind of throwing their hands up and saying, you know what, to be on the safe side, I'm just going to make everybody that doesn't have a concealed carry license wait 3 days.
That's the consensus I'm getting from all the other shops in the area that I talk to.
Yep.
And because they want to cover their butt with that.
Right. And I don't blame them.
Right.
JC, you were there when we called FDLE.
I did call FDLE.
First, they're not attorneys, they told us.
They did advise that they were not attorneys, but they said...
What did they say?
We interpret this as saying or, not and. It's one or the other.
How can
And
you?
I said, but it says in your ruling that it's and. So how can it be or? And she said, well, that's how we interpret it.
And an or are two different
Two
words.
completely different things, especially when it comes to the law.
Yes, you may go to jail. You may lose your license. You may not.
So
Yeah.
you see where the confusion lies with all shops, because even if you call someone too, you're getting a different answer.
Yep.
Every time you talk to a different person, you're going to get a different answer.
Then they tell you to call the ATF, which surprisingly, folks, the ATF has no jurisdiction over that.
Correct.
That's a state law.
Yep. Well, and then they also said that you could call your state attorney's office that would have absolutely no clue, or the attorney general's office, which does not give legal advice over the phone. So I'm not quite sure where
You need to call
were
law
supposed to go.
offices of Cynthia M. Clark.
Yes.
So listen, when we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. We're going to go into some of the other topics and get into some gun trusts. We'll be back shortly. And we're back. This is Joe Krashenko with Gun Talk with Joe. And again, we have our guest here, attorney Cynthia Clark, or Cindy Clark, as she gives me that look. And we also have JC Krashenko, one of the co-owners of Aegis Tactical. And we were talking about these new laws that came out with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. And we were talking about the 3-day wait and how FDLE is pretty much messing this up. That's a nice way of putting it.
Well,
So, big thing we were talking about is the FDLE kept on using the word "and." So, for 3-day wait, one of the exceptions were there's an exception for concealed weapons holders. There's an exception for people that have a 16-hour hunter safety certification course or safety course. Mm-hmm. They have to have the certification card as well. FDLE says, and they need the hunting license, an active hunting license. So that'd be 3 things that they would need. But in reality, and Cindy Clark helped me out with this one, it's actually you need the hunter safety course and the certification card that you get with the hunter safety course, or the hunter license, active hunter's license.
Well, kind of, sort of.
Kind of. I messed up
clarify
already.
for us, Cindy.
No, the hunter, when you take the hunter safety course, you get a certification card. It's kind of like when you take your concealed carry license class.
Yes.
And then you get that beautiful certificate.
That we hand out to all the people here.
Yeah.
At Aegis Tactical.
Aegis Tactical, yes, they do. So you either have that certification card proving that you took the hunter safety course, or you have a hunting license. And the reason they did that is our laws for hunting allow you to have, it's an either or. Basically, if you were born before 1975, you are exempt from the hunter safety course.
Yes.
Okay? So you
That includes you, Joe.
yes, so for some of us older people, we don't need the hunter safety course. We can just go produce our driver's license showing our date of birth and our residence and get a hunting license. We don't need the hunter safety course. But if you're born in 1975 or later, and I don't remember when it is, but it's around 1975, you have to take the hunter safety course, get your certification card, and present that to get your hunting license. We also have an exemption for people over 65. They can get a hunting license, again, just by showing their driver's license. But so that's how our laws are written. So they couldn't say you needed both of those because a lot of people don't have both of those,
right,
and they're not required to under the law. And again, the exemptions that we're talking about right now are strictly long guns. The only exemptions for handguns are concealed carry and
Yes, concealed weapons license. That's it.
that's it. Yeah. So, but for to get the waiting period exemption on the long guns, if you have a concealed carry, you don't have a waiting period for anything. Concealed carry license. Anyway, so that's the deal with the.
And also, active law enforcement, they don't have the 3-day wait for the long gun.
Long gun only.
Long gun.
Right. Long
and
gun,
our
yeah.
active military members.
Yeah,
Again,
long gun
they got to be
only.
active full-time military. Unfortunately, National Guard reserves and all that do not count
Right.
for that.
Right.
Correct.
And here's another interesting thing. So if you make a private transfer or have a gift, there's no 3-day waiting period. The waiting period only applies when you go through a licensed dealer.
they kind of penalize us. And
Yeah, they want kids. It's almost as if they want children, but well, not children, young adults buying their handguns out of the back of a car somewhere instead of going to licensed dealers.
actually, I'm going to put my other hat on right now and go back to as the gun dealer. And JC can chime in on this one. I'm sure she will. We just got done with our ATF audit again.
Thank God.
You know, that's kind of, it's almost like the IRS audit, but it's for firearms. But that's what we signed up for when we got into it. Like Cindy just said, they go through all of our papers, every single record for the year they go through. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys are thorough. And this guy was actually a pretty good guy, too.
It was awesome.
They go through every single little thing like you wouldn't believe. Checking, make sure they had the concealed weapons license, all of our I's were dotted, T's were crossed, everything else. And we get jammed up if they're not. However, they can buy it from somebody in the back of a car down the street, and there's no requirement whatsoever.
Right. So they're only regulating the licensed firearm. They're only regulating the licensed firearm dealer. They're not regulating gun shows. They're not regulating person to person.
They're not regulating the private collector
at a gun show. Correct. Because
dealers still have to go through the background check.
And you're still doing your 4473s. Yeah. But you can, so it makes it easier for people who don't want to go through their background to buy them anyway, person to person. Right.
Well, especially, if you don't want the waiting period, if you don't happen to have a concealed, it's as usual. The laws are restricting the people who follow the laws, mm-hmm. and the people who are licensed, like Aegis Tactical, and have to go through all these hoops and all these laws and all these inspections and all of this. It is
bad law.
Bad law. Yes, it is bad law.
So another thing we'll get into, we've talked about this before, and people are lighting up the internet over this. And folks, again, if you missed any part of this episode, you want to hear it, it's going to be on our Facebook page in about a half hour. And you get to see us too, which is scary.
That's very scary.
We have a whole recording of this. Our Facebook page is Gun Talk with Joe on Facebook. We have a website, Gun Talk with Joe, Twitter, Gun Talk with Joe. You know how to get a hold of us. Well, let's talk about these bump fire stocks. And actually, with the law stating with anything,
we'll let Cindy go with this.
Before Cindy makes me look like a fool again, I'll just let Cindy talk about it.
You definitely have much more technical knowledge on the on the bump fire stocks than I do. I know what one is. I have used one before. Not that we have one, but I've used one. We lost it in that boating accident, but
a lot of people on that boat.
I know.
It's crazy.
But anyway, this bump stock, it just completely bans bump stocks as of October 1 of this year. You can't buy it, possess it, give it away, transfer it, anything. It becomes contraband as of October 1st, and just possessing it is a felony.
So if you just have one that you bought 5 months ago, 5 weeks ago.
You mean when all those people were buying counterfeit ones?
They're buying crazy ones. I'm not a big fan of the bump stocks, folks. Everybody knows that already. But if you happen to buy one a couple weeks ago, you have one in your possession, and people are paying good money for those things. As of October 1st, you're now a felon if you have one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
If you're in possession of one, you are a felon.
Now, how about binary triggers?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, because the way the law was written, it's so broad. As lawyers say, and again, I'm not a litigation attorney. I do estate planning, elder law, gun trust, things like that. So I don't do litigation, but Second Amendment's my passion, so that's why I
And you are a gun person.
Things. I am a gun person, yes. But one of the things that they say is that a law is vague or overbroad. And this law is both. It is. So people, litigation attorneys, civil litigation attorneys, criminal defense attorneys are going to have a field day with this law.
Well, maybe you should go back for 1 second, Joe, and tell people what a binary trigger is.
Binary trigger set up for your standard semi-automatic trigger. You press the trigger, it goes bang. You release it, you press it again, it goes bang. The binary triggers are set up for you press the trigger, it goes bang, and when you release it, it goes bang. Some of them can get really expensive. You like my technical term, bang?
Dang, that was good.
I like
it
that.
works.
Yes.
It's another gimmick. They're cool. Some of them are expensive. If you get one, make sure if you get one and you live in another state, not the state of Florida after October 1st,
Yeah.
buy one of the good ones. We haven't sold many. We've sold maybe 5 of them, but you're going to be a felon if you possess that now.
Nobody knows. The FDLE will be saying, go ask attorneys.
Yeah, nobody's going to know.
Because here's the thing: how would they know you have one?
Well,
The big thing that's going to happen is if, God forbid, you have to use it to protect yourself. If you have a home invasion or something like that and you use your firearm to protect yourself, now the cops are going to confiscate
Your firearm.
your firearm. They have to determine to make sure it was your gun that stopped the bad person. So when they're scrutinizing your gun, they're going to look at, look at this trigger.
But the trigger is not part of the ban.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's not, you don't know.
They said the way the law is written, it says it bans bump fire stocks, but then it goes on to
Anything that alters the rate of fire.
As a basically anything that alters. Oh, let's see. Here it is.
I'm actually looking up the laws right now.
It says, as used in this section, the term bump fire stock means a conversion kit, a tool, an accessory, or a device used to alter the rate of fire of a firearm to mimic automatic weapon fire, or which is used to increase the rate of fire to a faster rate than is possible for a person to fire such semi-automatic firearm unassisted by a kit, tool, or accessory or a device.
So the binary trigger does fall under that. It could fall under that category.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Even
agree.
though it's not a bump fire
How
stock.
about if I had a little tiny treadmill for my fingers and I worked them out and got them really
I think
fast?
I saw that somewhere on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would that make me a felon? Would that make me illegal?
I don't know.
There's
It
a lot
depends
of
on
things.
if they considered it a kit or a tool or an accessory. That's the problem. It's just written so broadly and so vague that a lot of different things are going to fit in there.
And that leaves it open to a more criteria. It's going to just keep it wide open, and you don't know where. I think we're going to be seeing people having issues, and they're going to create a new law because of that. Then they're going to find something else, and it's going to be sued, and then you're going to get a new law because of that.
I just don't want to be the
It's like a
first
domino
person locked
effect.
up and they use as an example.
Right. Well, somebody
all
is.
this.
Somebody is. But
Yeah.
Then I hope some of these organizations like the NRA or somebody else actually jumps in to help this person out, because
yeah, I think they
you'll
will.
go broke trying to defend yourself.
It'll probably be. I believe the NRA is going to be jumping in, but they can't do anything until after October 1. The way the laws are written, you really can't fight a law until somebody is affected by it, and nobody is affected by it yet.
Yeah.
So
Yet being the key word.
yeah. And of course, now we're hearing that Trump's administration is seeking to ban bump fire stocks by doing an end run around Congress and having the ATF and the Justice Department come up with a rule classifying bump stocks as, I can't believe I saw this, as a machine gun part.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Sounds like some eBay would say. Listen, when we return, we're going to finish this conversation. You're listening to Gun Talk with Joe, and we'll be back briefly. Okay, you're back with Joe, Cynthia, and JC with Gun Talk with Joe. Joe, that's me. We were just talking about the ban on the bump fire stocks and all that, but now we're going to get into something a little more juicier, I think, a little bit better and more fun, because we made a comment that they're classifying the bump fire stocks as the federal government's trying to, as a machine gun. So let's talk about machine guns, silencers or suppressors, SBRs, which are short-barreled rifles. These are just NFA items. And up until recently, was it July of last year?
July of 2016. Oh, can you believe it?
2016.
Already?
2016.
Wow. Time is flying.
It is.
You, down here in the state of Florida, if you wanted to have a NFA item, let's say a suppressor or something like that, you would either have to go to the sheriff's office. Well, you buy the suppressor. You have to get a Form 4 from the ATF. You have to go get basically permission from the sheriff pre-July of 2016 to have the suppressor. The sheriffs would never sign off on you down here, which still blows my mind why they wouldn't do that. Or what you could do is have a firearms trust. At that point in time, you wouldn't have to go to the sheriff. You would just have to notify him that the trust or her, that the trust is going to be owning this NFA item. Submit all the paperwork to the ATF, and it takes 6 to 13 months for them to actually approve you, which still doesn't make much sense when they do that. But then to get the trust, you have to have a trusted attorney. And that's where Cindy comes into play here. So, but right now, when they change that law, Cindy, you can spread some light on this or shed some light on this. You no longer need to have a trust with the new law after July 2016.
Correct.
Because you didn't need permission from the sheriff. You just had to notify him as an individual.
Right. Yeah. So what happened? There was a so-called gun trust loophole. We've heard of the gun show loophole. There was also something that they called a gun trust loophole because somebody was convinced people were buying NFA items using gun trusts and criminals were somehow buying gun trusts and buying NFA items, which makes no sense because they don't bother with gun trusts. But anyway, so in July 2016, the ATF, under the Obama administration, changed the rules for how we purchase NFA items. The rules have been the same since 1934, 38. I've lost my dates in my head today. But anyway, since the 1930s. We've been buying them the same way ever since. They've been looked at many, many times and have never really changed until now. So what they decided is instead of having the sheriff sign off on when you want to purchase an NFA item, now you don't need that. Now what happens is the gun trust, the person that's in control of the gun trust can fill out the paperwork and just send a copy to the chief law enforcement officer of their jurisdiction rather than getting the sign off. So it sounds like a great thing. It sounds like, oh, that's pretty cool. But what they did is they also said everybody attached to the gun trust, anybody who has control over the gun trust that can make decisions on the gun trust, not the weapon, but over the gun trust is a responsible person. And that includes what is called the grantor of the gun trust. That is the person that is the one who actually calls me up on the phone and says, Cindy, I need a gun trust. That's the grantor. He or she makes the trust and puts his or her assets into the trust. It also includes the trustee of the gun trust. That is the person who possesses the actual assets of the gun trust, which are the weapons. Those are the responsible persons. In most cases, under most gun trusts done by me, at least nowadays, the grantor and the trustee are the same person. Okay? So we have one responsible person on the gun trust. What was happening before is it was husband, wife, brother, nephew, cousin, father-in-law, all these people are on the trust. And I saw a gun trust yesterday with 6 co-trustees.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
I've seen them before.
That's a lot of paperwork, let me tell you.
A lot of paperwork. And interestingly, the grantor was not a trustee. The lawyer who had drafted this gun trust was not a gun trust attorney and forgot to put the grantor on as a trustee of his own trust. So
interesting.
Yeah. So he technically cannot
not use his own trust, use his own items.
Right. Well, he can use them because anyway, it's just ugly. But anyway, so
right now, technically, they don't need.
Technically, you don't need a gun trust to purchase an NFA item.
Well, then let me ask you, what's the benefit of having a gun trust?
The benefit is what the original benefit of a gun trust was way back before all this happened. A gun trust is nothing more than a revocable living trust. It is a way to avoid probate of your highly regulated weapons. It is a way to keep privacy, keep your private business within your family, not outside in the court somewhere. And it's about control. It's about controlling what happens to your weapons when you die or become incapacitated. If you buy an NFA item, let's say you make a SBR.
And that's a short-barreled rifle.
Short-barreled rifle, yep. And you do it as an individual, okay, which is fine, perfectly legal. You do all the paperwork, you fill out your Form 4, Form 1, Form 4, whichever, if you're making or buying, and you send it to the ATF. You wait your year for it to come back, and now, yay, you get to make your SBR or take it home. And if you die, that weapon, even if nothing else in your estate has to go through probate, because you have a joint bank account with your wife and your house is in joint name and everything else is in joint name. Well, guess what? That SBR is not in joint name. That is registered with the federal government in your name. And nobody can do a thing with it until they they have to go through probate and get the proper paperwork to do something with it. Probate, the cheapest probate I can do is $2,500.
Wow.
That's kind of expensive for...
You're in a good business.
Good for you.
Oh, that's the cheapest probate. Probate's expensive. So that's one thing. Number two, if you don't have a trust and you've got, you're 44 and you bought a silencer for it and you're 44, you're 45. 44. You have your 45 on your nightstand with a silencer because, hearing in a tile house, if you ever have to shoot somebody in your house, could be pretty brutal. So you've got your silencer on it for home protection. You're out of town one night, or maybe you're in the hospital or whatever, and somebody breaks into the house or tries to break into your house, and your significant other grabs the gun off the nightstand, shoots them. Great. Awesome. Guess what's going to happen when the cops come? She is in possession of a weapon that is not in her name, a highly regulated weapon. She has committed a felony, and you have committed a felony by allowing her to have it.
How about if you had it in your safe?
Oh, well, if you have it in your safe.
Your spouse, significant other, whatever, had the combination to the safe.
Yep, same thing. It's called
that's constructive.
A felony too? Yep, it's called constructive possession, and it is a felony, and it is punishable by... I'm trying to remember the numbers. If you don't have it in a trust, I believe it's 10 years and $250,000 fine.
What?
Yeah. If you have it in
crazy.
It's
crazy.
Spend the money on the trust.
So
on the trust.
So you can get a trust relatively cheap compared to that, for sure.
Definitely.
And, if you're going to spend that much money on your NFA items, let's face it, like a machine gun is ridiculous.
Or suppressors.
You can buy a Corvette for what it costs for a machine gun.
Right.
Suppressors, a good one, you're going to be in the $1,000 range. What's an extra couple $100 to have a attorney draw up your paperwork to put it in the trust, and it protects you
and your family,
and it protects the item too.
It does.
Again, if something happens to you, it's not going to just get destroyed.
And it doesn't change the fact of how long you're waiting or how long, you have to wait for to get it and how long that stamp will come in. It doesn't change that.
The wait is still ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
We still have people waiting a year.
We have a safe full of them, but we do let you to come and visit them and say hi to them.
Visitation rights.
We do give visitation rights without child support.
That's awesome. That's great because it's a long wait, and you've already paid for your item up front, and now you just got to sit around and wait. But so the one thing we just kind of glossed over is the fact that back in the day, back in the good old days when you had a gun trust, you didn't have to do fingerprints, passport photos. So it speeded things up a little bit on the front end. Okay, so you didn't have to go down to the sheriff and get your fingerprints. You didn't have to go to Walmart, get your passport photos. But now you do. So individuals have to get everything done, and so do all the responsible persons if a gun trust is used, which is why we keep them down to one or two. The most I ever do is a husband and wife who are both actively involved in the sport.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes
We've
it
had
easier
clients there were a bunch of friends that got into a trust. They put all their items in there, NFA items in there, so they can all share them and go to the range without everybody being there. And then they started getting into arguments about the items.
Right.
So let's finish this up when we return. Just going to be a brief break, and we're going to finish talking up about the trust, and we're going to start talking about school safety with the kids, and we're going to just get our opinions on this. That part's not going to be factual, so it should be more fun. We'll be back shortly. Hey, you're back with Gun Talk with Joe. I'm Joe. We got Cindy next to me, and we also have JC here with Aegis Tactical. And Cindy was just talking about, again, Cindy Clark. She's an attorney, one of the best ones around. If you need anything with a trust or anything like that, you have to contact Cindy. We're going to have all of her contact information, everything on our Facebook page, Twitter, and our website. And, of course, you can listen to this later on, stream it, podcast, whatever it is. We have them all out there for you if you missed any part of this show. But I got one question for you now about the trusts. Let's say I have a couple buddies of mine on my trust. And because I want them to be able to take my suppressor, my SBR, go to the range and shoot it. That's perfectly legal, right?
Okay, so
hesitation.
There's hesitation.
Hesitation. Well, because it's, I have to give the typical lawyer answer. It depends. That's our favorite.
That's so typical.
Yeah, and it'll be $500. So,
Okay.
No. Okay, so here's the deal. If you already have a trust written up, especially people that did their trusts before the law changed in 2016, a lot of people added all kinds of people to their trust as co-trustees, this, that, and the other. Under the new law, every single person who's listed as a current trustee on that trust and the grantor are responsible persons, and you got to do all the fingerprints, passport photos, and Form 23s for all of these people. Okay.
And that can get kind of expensive.
That can get very expensive.
I mean, again, our local sheriff's department down here is charging $35 per print card. So that would be $70 per person.
Per person.
Right, because you need to have it in duplicate.
Yeah.
So think about it. Some of these people actually had 10 people on their trust. That's $700 additional it's going to cost you
Right.
for that next
Which
item.
is crazy.
Well, there's a couple of things you might be able to do. And again, it depends on the trust you have.
On the way the trust was written.
On the way the trust was written. But if you have the power to amend your trust, we can fix that. I do that all the time. We can do actually, we just restate your whole trust. We just say, hey, your trust is garbage. We keep the name and the original date. Because you've already got items in that name. We don't want to mess with that. But we just rip the guts out and give you new guts. We give you better guts. And you can name.
And that's a legal term.
That's a legal term, yes. And you can take out all those other trustees. So it can just be you and yourself as the trustee. Now, then people are like, well, what if I want to let my girlfriend use my gun? Okay. You can do that. The way the law is written, and again, lawyers use the law to their client's advantage. That is our job. And if the law is badly written, that's on the people who wrote the law. So the way the law, shame on them, yes. So the way the law is written, it's a snapshot effect. In other words, it's the snapshot of what your trust looks like when you send in that application to the ATF. Okay? So that snapshot, when you send that application to the ATF, should be you as grantor, you as trustee. Maybe you and your wife, if, again, that would be about it. Never a whole bunch of other people. And you do the paperwork for yourself. You send everything in. You get your stamp back. Now, at that point, there is a way to add a temporary trustee to your trust. Some gun trust lawyers do this, not all of them. Some people who are familiar with trusts know how to do this. That's what I'll tell you. The people who were just doing $99 gun trusts along with their real estate practice probably don't know this. But anyway, you can have a temporary trustee, what we call a trustee beneficiary on your trust, so that you can specify a certain person be able to use certain weapons for a certain amount of time. And you can keep it open-ended as long as you take them off. Oops, I hit the mic. Take them off before you do something else with your NFA item. Because again, it's a snapshot. So when you submit that, you have to truthfully be telling the ATF, you are the only responsible person. I am never going to tell somebody to not follow the law. But the law says, snapshot time, when you do this, you better be the only responsible person. So it can be done.
That's the gun trust loophole, maybe?
Yeah, I guess we could call that the gun trust loophole. But it's not really a loophole because here's the deal. Every single person associated with a gun trust has to follow every single federal and state law. So no criminals, no mental cases. I know that's not the politically correct term.
Let's go back to the state law real quick, not to cut you off. There's a lot of people buying these gun trusts, like you said, the $99 ones they're getting from somebody, real estate agents or something like that, whatever it is. But there's people getting some of these gun trusts for free online. They're downloading them, or they're getting them from other dealers in other states. But doesn't your trust have to be legal or valid in the state you reside?
Trusts are funny things. Again, it depends.
There's that lawyer word again.
Yep, there it goes again. Technically, a trust that you create in Florida is valid in every state. It's kind of like your driver's license, if you want to think of it that way. Your driver's license is valid in every state, but you have to follow that state's laws, okay?
Yes.
You can't just say, well, I have a Florida driver's license, so I follow Florida laws. Same thing with a gun trust.
Okay.
But what happens is it better be the state where you die, because the law of that trust is going to control what happens at your death.
What happens now? Let's say somebody, a good friend of ours, moved to Georgia and took his trust, took all of his items up there. Mm-hmm. Should he be changing?
He should go talk to a gun trust attorney and have the trust restated, or what we call amended, to be following the laws of Georgia.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. And we do that too. So
let's talk about something a little different here. We put a post on our Facebook page, and it was about the clear backpacks and all that stuff. And this is all coming from the shooting that happened at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. What's your feeling on A, the clear backpacks, B, the metal detectors? At the time, they were talking about just doing backpacks, but possibly doing a metal detector.
Well,
you can tell us how you really feel.
I mean, be honest.
No, it's complicated.
Another lawyer word?
I thought that was just for women.
That's really just kind of a woman word. It is kind of a woman word, but it's my gut instinct, and it's so funny because when I saw your post, I typed up a reply, I typed up a comment, but then got sidetracked by my real work. And the comment just kind of died because later on I was like, oh, now I'm not angry about it, so I'm not going to post it. But anyway, my thought was the minute I actually read the article. Okay, I don't read just the headline. I actually read the article. So I read the article, and again, it was all about government telling me, you know what, we're going to take just a little bit of your rights away for your own good and for your safety, for your children's safety. And my libertarian and lawyer hairs on the back of my neck stand up every time I hear that. Mm-hmm.
But do the kids have rights when they're going to school?
But and that's the other part of me. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I care about my kids. I wouldn't want my kids harmed in a school shooting any more than anybody else would. So my thought was, I don't like that. I don't like that government interference in the life. I don't feel like the clear backpacks are really going to change anything. I think it'll make people feel safe. It won't make them safe. Now, in conjunction with metal detectors, random bag searches, random pat downs. I don't know if you can do that to kids. It's probably illegal.
Probably. I'm sure.
Can you have a kid pat down another kid? I don't know.
Out for anything that's going to help for the safety, especially for the kids.
See, I'm not. I'm not for.
You're not for safety.
You're not for
Terrible.
safety of the
I
kids.
know that sounds awful, but again, you just made a blanket statement, Joe, and this is where I love when we can disagree.
It's called bantering.
It is, and again, it's from different backgrounds, different ways of looking at things, and I must admit, law school warps your brain seriously, but I am not for anything for safety. I have to look at the cost-benefit analysis. And again, when rights are involved, whether they're children's or adults, I really have to say, look, let's really think about this. And will the benefit outweigh the cost? Will it anyway, so but the point is, I do agree that children have virtually no rights other than what their parents give them. So I would say if the parents at that school are okay with their children having clear backpacks and then
And they're being paid by the school, I believe.
Like the school's
buying them.
which means we're buying them.
Now, Jason, you're a mom.
Yes.
You're the mother of our child
Yes.
and my former spouse, but
It's not always cupcakes and unicorns, folks.
I like unicorns. But anyway, how do you feel about it? If they told our son that he's got to have a clear backpack when he went to school.
Honestly, I don't know. I can go either way on this. And the reason is we go to sporting events. We go to soccer games. We go to concerts. We go to football games. You have to have a clear backpack to go to those.
Mm-hmm. And you can search with the metal detector.
Correct. I would rather see metal detectors at our schools.
Pulled out in line. And they search me. They do everything. And
you have that look about you.
Yeah, I think.
But I would rather see metal detectors because I think that would be more... you can have a backpack that you could still probably try to hide things.
It's all a deterrent because bad people are going to do bad things.
If they want to get it through, they're going to find a way to get it through.
Let's make it as difficult as we possibly can for them in the long run. I mean, if you walk into our shop, right on the door, it says a nice little sign that we don't call 911.
And everyone loves that.
Yeah, we take care of problems ourselves. To me, that's the old school way. It still works.
It does.
I would say the difference between sporting events, things like that, are private versus government. Private people can do a lot more things than the government can. And so, again, to me, it's the government. Private people, I mean, if I had to come in here, if you wanted to put a metal detector, that would be fun, but put a metal detector on your door
at a gun store
and pat us down as we go in and out. Hey, that's your...
Do we get to choose who we pat down?
Do you know how many people we have come in daily to ask if they can bring their guns in?
And they do walk in. A lot of times they walk in and they ask first, and then they'll go out to their car and get it, which is nice and polite.
Right.
It is, but yeah, it's a gun shop. Yes, we want you to have guns.
Yes.
But if you pull yours, we're going to pull ours. Just going to say it.
Right. So private enterprises, I have no issue with that. Government, which is a school, a public school, you got to be more careful. That's my only concern with that.
None of us want bigger government or
No.
the man telling us what to do.
And honestly, we all want our children to be safe.
And we do.
Yes,
We
I just want my kid to
definitely
come home at the end of the day and I can know when he's at school that he's safe.
I do like that the new law, they're going to have more active shooter and hostage taking training for students and teachers. I thought that was a good thing. That's the
they
new...
They got to come up with a better plan. And actually training people on it, because again, if you think about it, you're done. You're lost.
Well, that's it. And the other thing, it said something about they have to have alarms. And I'm like, are they going to have the same alarm for a fire drill as for a active shooter drill? I'm hoping they figure out those better make different
that
alarms.
would be, because the last two, Parkland and the Columbine, were both, they pulled the fire drill.
The fire alarm to cause confusion. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think we're out of time right now. This was fun, though.
Thanks, Cindy.
Absolutely.
A little disagreement,
Appreciate
a little bantering, but that's always fun. So that's where you can hear from us again next Sunday at 8 o'clock, or you can check us out on Facebook right now, because we are going to air this show, the video of it, and you'll be able to get the podcast, everything else if you missed it. But if not, we'll see you next Sunday. Have a great night.